Okay, for number 5, we want to represent the solution set of the inequality on the number line. So the first two ask about real numbers, which just mean pretty much any number including a fraction or a decimal. This one here talks about a whole number, and with our number system we have our natural or counting numbers, and we naturally start counting 1, 2, 3, and so on. Those are natural numbers. Our whole numbers are starting with the natural numbers, but adding, in a sense, our numbers, sometimes we say, with a whole in it, 0. So these are the whole numbers. And then, of course, we can then go on with those, and we can add our negative numbers, which become our integers. So these are our whole numbers. Our real numbers can be any number that has a fraction or a decimal. It's still a real number. Okay? So for this, we're going to go ahead and work each of these problems. So our first one simply says x is greater than or equal to 3, and x is a real number. So we're starting with 3 right here. So we're starting with 3, and we know x is greater than 3. So we're going to go one way or the other. So if we look on this side, we have 4 and 5. 4 and 5 are greater than 3. This side, 1 and 2. 1 and 2 are not greater than 3. So we're going to have to go this way. And it's going to be an arrow because it's going to cover all of these numbers. Okay? So it's going to be every number. It's also going to include 3 because it can be equal to 3. So we're going to fill in this dot, and we're just going to make it everything, and it just continues on because every number up here that we go up to is going to be greater than 3. So for these, if we have greater than or less than, we're going to put in basically a circle for the ones with the arrows. If we have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, we're going to fill in that circle because we're including that. So the example would be, for instance, if a restaurant said children under 12 eat free. That would mean if they're 11 and 364 days old, they still eat free. But they don't if they're 12. Some places say, for instance, that children 12 and under eat free. So once you hit 12, you're automatically included there also. So we put the dot to show, okay, 12 is also included, where here it's empty, meaning it's not included. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first one here. We have the 3, and we know it's greater than, and we filled that in. For the next one, x is less than negative 1. So here's our negative 1, and then less than. Well, these numbers here are greater than, so less than has to go this way. And it's a real number, so it can be any fraction. So less than or equal, less than, it's not equal to, it's just the less than. Okay. And remember, the less than is kind of like the L in less. It's one of the ways to remember it. It's also on this side of the number line, has the less than symbol. So less than number 1, negative 1. So we could say, for instance, we don't go outside if the temperature is below negative 1. So if it's at negative 1 Celsius, we could go outside. But below that, we don't. So that is not included. So if it's actually negative 1, we would still go outside. For the next one, it's asking for a whole number. So the whole numbers aren't going to be the arrows because it's not going to include, for instance, 3.5. This one here, if you are 4.5, you're included. If you're 5 1/3, you're included. Here we're just going to use the actual numbers themselves. So it says x is less than 4. So 4 is not going to work. But 3 is less than 4. 2 is less than 4. 1 is less than 4. 0 is less than 4. Now everything this way is less than 4, but we want whole numbers, which means we're not going to include the negative numbers because they aren't whole numbers, they're integers. And we're not actually including the 4, so if we wanted to, we could just erase that. So basically, if they said you can have less than 4 entries, for a contest. You can do 3 entries, or 2 entries, 1 entry, or you could do 0 entries. You can't do a negative number of entries. Now if you do 4, that's not less than 4, that's equal to 4. So that would be our answer for number 5.